The Harvest. Chapter 1. Atop the city hill. In the quiet hours of night, when the veil between realms is thin, I found myself standing atop a city hill. The air tasted of salt and anticipation, and the city sprawled below me like a tapestry woven from dreams. This hill, the heart of our existence, overlooked a world of rolling hills and channels of water, sapphire blue veins that carried life to every corner. Along those waterways stood stone pedestals, their weathered surfaces polished by the hands of countless watchmen. These sentinels, perched above the lapping waves, were more than mere observers, they were guardians of the great harvest. Their eyes, etched with wisdom and salt, scanned the horizon for signs, the crimson schools of fish that sustained our village. In this delicate ecosystem, every soul played a role. From the youngest child to the eldest elder, we were woven together by purpose. Parents taught their children the ancient ways, the art of casting nets, the rhythm of the tides. Survival depended on our unity, our shared knowledge passed down through generations. And then it came, the alarm, a primal call echoing through the dawn. The fish were near. The village stirred, a synchronized flurry of motion. Each person knew their part, the net weavers, the boat navigators, the watchmen. We moved with precision, fueled by excitement and the promise of sustenance. Beside me stood my friend, a boatman named Elias. His hands, calloused and sure, gripped the rudder. His eyes sparkled with anticipation. Elias was in his element, the salt water ran in his veins. He guided our small boat, its wooden hull slicing through the water. The net hung poised, ready to capture the crimson bounty. As the fish arrived in schools, Elias's movements were poetry. He cast the net with grace, each loop a prayer for abundance. Joy danced across his face, a reflection of the ancient dance between man and sea. The watchmen, their crimson robes billowing, guided us toward the richest shoals. No catch would escape their vigilant eyes. But then, as the sun peeked over the horizon, I woke. The dream slipped away, leaving me with fragments, the taste of salt, the echo of distant scriptures. And yet, I knew, I was called to be part of this harvest, this delicate dance between earth and sea. The watchmen awaited my return, and the crimson fish swirled in anticipation. Chapter 2. The Watchman's Vision. The sun climbed higher, casting its golden net across the waterways. Elias and I stood on our boat, the wood creaking beneath our weight. His hands, weathered like the watchman's robes, gripped the oars. The dream still clung to me, the taste of salt, the echo of fresh scriptures. As the crimson fish swirled beneath us, Elias's eyes held a secret. "There's more to this harvest," he said, his voice a low murmur. "The watchmen know. They've seen visions, prophecies etched in moonlight." I leaned closer. "Visions?" He nodded. "The water speaks to them. They've glimpsed a future, a time when the fish will bear more than sustenance. They'll carry messages, truths hidden in their scales." Elias's gaze shifted to the nearest pedestal. A watchman stood there, his face etched with purpose. "He seeks the oracle," Elias whispered. "A seer who dwells in the heart of the rolling hills. He deciphers the fish's dance, reads their patterns." "But why?" I asked. "To unravel destiny," Elias said. "To find the lost verses, the ones that slipped through time's net. The fish carry memories, and forgotten hymns. The oracle seeks the key, the song that will mend what's broken." As Elias rode, the water shimmered. The veil between realms thinned. I glimpsed the oracle, a man with eyes like ancient scrolls. He sat atop a pedestal, his robe trailing in the sapphire breeze. His hands moved, tracing invisible patterns. "Listen," Elias said. "He sings to the fish." His voice echoes through the channels, reaching the watchmen's hearts. And so, we sailed toward the oracle. Elias's joy was contagious, the thrill of discovery, the promise of revelation. The oracle's song lingered in my soul. Chapter 3. The Song. The sun climbed higher, its rays weaving through the mist that clung to the waterways. Elias and I stood on our boat, the wood creaking beneath our weight. It took an unexpected turn. As Elias navigated, the crimson fish swirled beneath us. Their scales glimmered like rubies, and their eyes held secrets. I watched, mesmerized, as they leaped, no longer mere fish, but souls yearning for more. Each splash was a prayer, each ripple a plea. Elias's gaze shifted to the nearest pedestal. A watchman stood there, his face etched with wonder. "They hear it," Elias whispered. "The song." I asked. "What song?" "The one the oracle sings," he said. "Not just to the fish, but to the hearts of those who seek. He weaves truth into melody, hope into harmony through his spirit." And there he was, the oracle. His robe billowed like storm clouds, his hair a cascade of silver. He sat atop the hill, his eyes closed, his lips moving. The song flowed from him, a symphony of longing and revelation. As the notes reached the water, the crimson fish changed. Their bodies elongated, their fins became hands. They sprouted wings, ethereal and fragile. And they sang, a chorus to the Lamb, ancient promises. The villagers gathered by the shore, drawn by the celestial melody. Their eyes widened as they witnessed the transformation. Children reached out, touching the water, feeling the vibrations of the song. Elders wept, remembering dreams long buried. Elias turned to me. "Will you join them?" he asked. "Will you become one of the harvesters?" I hesitated. To be transformed, to hear the oracle's song, was both terrifying and irresistible. But what would it cost? What truths lay hidden in those notes? Could I dive into the depths, hear the song, and emerge changed? The watchmen awaited their visions, the villagers listened for the melody, and the oracle's hill beckoned. And so, I set sail once more, toward the unknown, toward the crimson fish, toward the heart of the great harvest. Chapter 4: The Overflowing Sanctuary. The oracle's song echoed in my soul as we sailed toward the heart of the great harvest. The crimson fish, once mere souls yearning for more, now danced in the water, a symphony of transformation. Elias's eyes held both fear and wonder. He knew the stakes, the cost of hearing the heavenly melody. As our boat neared the shore, the villagers gathered. Their faces mirrored the sky, sunbursts of hope. They had heard whispers, the crimson fish, the oracle's hill. Now they watched, their breaths held, as the boat touched land. The village church stood there, a humble sanctuary with walls of weathered wood. Its doors swung open, inviting all who sought refuge. But today, it overflowed. People spilled onto the grass, their eyes wide, their hearts hungry. Elias stepped ashore, his hands trembling. "This is no ordinary harvest," he said. "These fish, their souls. Lost, broken, seeking redemption." I nodded. "And the song?" "The oracle's gift," he replied. "He sings of grace, of forgiveness. His melody pierces the darkest depths." Inside the church, the font awaited, the waters of rebirth. The crimson fish, now human, lined up. Their eyes held memories, their past lives, their sins. The watchman pointed the way. As each soul stepped into the font, the song intensified. The water embraced them, cleansing, renewing. Their sins dissolved, replaced by grace. And then they emerged, changed, reborn. The church couldn't contain their joy. The oracle stood at the altar, his silver hair a halo. His voice soared, a benediction for the redeemed. He sang of love that reached beyond time, of a lamb who bore their burdens. His eyes met mine, and I understood. Outside, the villagers wept. The crimson fish, now brothers and sisters, embraced them. The church doors burst open, and more souls flooded in. The pews groaned, the rafters trembled. The sanctuary overflowed. The watchmen awaited their visions, the villagers listened for the melody, and the oracle's hill beckoned. And so, I stepped into the waters, the great harvest, the overflowing sanctuary. The crimson fish, now my kin, sang with me. Together, we became the song, the symphony of grace. Chapter 5, The Eternal Harvest. The days blurred into weeks, and the weeks into months. The village hummed with purpose, the crimson fish now souls, the oracle's song etched into their hearts. Elias and I became fishers of men, casting our nets into the depths of human longing. Each dawn, we set sail. The watchmen guided us, their eyes sharp, their crimson robes billowing. The villagers lined the shore, their faces alight with anticipation. The church overflowed, its pews creaking under the weight of seekers. The font became a gateway, a threshold between worlds. Souls stepped in, their sins washed away. The oracle stood at the altar, her voice weaving tapestries of grace. She sang of redemption, of love that spanned eons. And the crimson fish emerged, changed, reborn, part of the eternal harvest. The church walls expanded, stretching toward the heavens. The villagers spilled into the streets, their voices rising, a symphony of praise. The crimson fish, now brothers and sisters, joined the chorus. Their wings brushed the rafters, their eyes aflame. And Jesus added to their number daily. He walked among us, his presence a whisper in the wind. He healed broken hearts, mended fractured souls. His love flowed like the sapphire channels, the same waters that once cradled the crimson fish. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I knew, the dream was no longer mine alone. It belonged to all who heard the oracle's song, who stepped into the baptismal waters, who became part of the great harvest. And so, we repeated the ritual, the daily casting of nets, the eternal dance between earth and sea. The watchmen awaited their visions, the villagers listened for the melody, and the oracle's hill stood as a beacon. In this rhythm, this sacred repetition, we found eternity, the crimson fish, the overflowing sanctuary, the promise of grace. Chapter 6, The Fishermen of Light. The village buzzed with purpose, the once crimson fish now redeemed souls, their wings brushing the rafters of the overflowing church. Elias and I stood at the water's edge, our hands calloused from casting nets. But this time, we weren't alone. The villagers joined us as men and women, young and old. They had tasted grace, felt the oracle's song reverberate in their bones. Now they stood, their eyes aflame, ready to become more than seekers. They were fishermen, fishers of men, as Jesus had promised. Each knew their place, their gifts from the Father of Lights. Some were healers, their touch mending broken bodies. Others were storytellers, weaving parables that ignited hope. A few had discernment, the ability to see beyond the veil, to glimpse eternity. Together, we cast a net of unity, woven from love. Each mesh held a soul, each knot a promise. We didn't just fish for the lost, we fished for purpose, for destiny. And as the net sank into the depths, we prayed, the ancient prayer of fishermen, the plea for abundance. As the sun peeked over the horizon, Jesus walked among us. His eyes held galaxies, his smile a sunrise. He touched our foreheads, anointing us with purpose. You are the light, he said. The light that darkness cannot extinguish. And so, we set sail once more, our boat now a vessel of hope. The watchmen awaited their visions, the villagers listened for the melody, and the oracle's hill stood as a beacon. But this time, we were more than witnesses. We were participants, co-laborers with the Father. It was here, now, in the hearts of fishermen. The crimson fish had become brothers and sisters, and together, we cast our nets wide. In this rhythm, this sacred repetition, we found eternity, the overflowing sanctuary, the promise of grace. And as the sun climbed higher, we sang, the symphony of redemption, the chorus of light. Chapter 7, The Light Spreads. The crimson fish, now fishermen of light, carried the oracle's song to distant lands. Their wings beat in unison, their hearts aflame with purpose. And as they sailed beyond the horizon, more villages sprang up, a tapestry of hope woven across the world. In far-off places, where sapphire waters met golden sands, people gathered. They had heard whispers, the story of redemption, the promise of grace. The fishermen arrived, their nets laden not just with fish, but with truth. They spoke of a Lamb who bore their burdens, of love that spanned eternity. The oracle's song echoed through valleys and mountains. His voice, carried by the wind, reached hearts hungry for meaning. He sang of forgiveness, of a Father who waited with open arms. And the crimson fish, now brothers and sisters, became messengers. They shared the melody, their eyes aflame with revelation. In each village, the Holy Spirit danced. His flames ignited souls, sparking revival. He whispered in dreams, guided footsteps, and kindled faith. His presence was a controlled burn, a consuming love that knew no bounds.